Sir, can we start with the program? Sir, shall we start with the program?
Yeah, we can start.
Yeah. So once again, good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you all for this afternoon session. The afternoon session is the speaker for this afternoon session is Professor Dr. Munish Garg, Professor and Dean Faculty of Pharmaceutical Sciences, Maharishi Dayanand University, Rohtak, Haryana. The topic for the of his presentation is translating pharmacognosy knowledge into healthcare system and overview. He has around 5 subtopics which he will be dealing in detail. To begin with, I would like to introduce Dr. Munish Garg. He is presently working as Professor, Department of Pharmaceutical Sciences, Maharishi Dayanand University, Rohtak, having more than 20 years of professional experience. He is past head, Department of Pharmaceutical Sciences and Dean Faculty of Pharmaceutical Sciences. He has also worked as Director, IQAC, when the university has achieved A+ grade in NAC ranking in 2019. He has previously worked as Assistant Director, AICTE, New Delhi, where he has worked in accreditation and faculty development cells. Presently, he also holds the charge as Director, Center for Startup Incubation and Innovation in his university. His area of interest is technological innovations for educational and societal problems. His research area is quality control, standardization, and bioprospectation of herbal plants and formulations, in which he has about around 75 publications, 150 scientific abstracts, 4 patents to his credit, 3 books, and financial grant of more than 3 crores from different government funding agencies to his credit. He is on the editorial board of reputed international journals. He has supervised more than 45 students for their postgraduate and doctoral thesis and dissertations. He is in the panel of experts in state government bodies like Pharmacy Council of India, AICTE, UGC, NAC, DST, etc. for the grant of approvals and funding for research projects. So with this brief introduction, we are fortunate enough to have such an eminent personality with us and to share his expertise among you all. So thank you, sir. Thank you for accepting our invitation and being on board of the speakers. So with this, I hand over the session to you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sholapur, for your generous words about me. And good afternoon, everyone who are participating. First of all, I extend my thanks to all the organizing members and the organizing team of the KLE College of Pharmacy, Hubli, and the whole KLE unit. I thank Professor Dr. Vishwanath Swami, who is the principal of KLE College of Pharmacy, Hubli, Shrimati Dr. Dasan Kopa, and Dr. Manjunath, and other administrative officers, patrons, chief patrons, registrar, deputy registrars, and other administrative bodies. When I got this invitation to speak on this issue, this topic, translating pharmacognosy knowledge into healthcare system, then I thought what I should speak. Normally, we are speaking on herbal drugs, medicinal plants, phytochemicals, and all. And but I was delighted that in the topic itself, it was written pharmacognosy. So I was, being a man of pharmacognosy, I was delighted, and I was very happy that something we should talk on pharmacognosy itself. So I requested Dr. Sholapur that I will take the theme subject only, and let me speak on the theme itself. So I have divided my presentation or my talk into the 2 or 3 parts, you can say. One part is academic and research, a portion of the pharmacognosy, which is dedicated to the pharmacognosy. And the second is herbal technology and herbal products. Because when we talk about herbal products, then the herbal products are not only owned by the pharmacognosy people. A lot of other persons are also working in the field of herbal drugs and medicinal plants and all. So as a pharmacognosist, I will try to discuss the things, so how pharmacognosy people and how pharmacognosy can contribute into the healthcare system. So I will speak for a few minutes on the pharmacognosy in the academic and research part, and then I will shift on the herbal drugs, medicinal plants, and their industrial part of view. So first of all, I request if you can switch on your cameras, I will be very happy. I can see some faces, and then it will be very nice. If you don't mind, please switch on your cameras, a few of them. So it will motivate me that I am interacting you in person and I am able to see you. And sometimes I will try that this session is not monotonous and it is interactive. I will be very happy if you are interrupting me in between at any given point of time and asking me questions and criticizing me and suggesting me and asking me and putting queries and your perspective. Because I'm putting my perspective, my point of view, maybe you are not agreeing with that. And if you are agreeing and non-agreeing, both the conditions are good for me, because if you are agreeing, that's fine. If you are not agreeing, then there is a point of discussion. So we can deliberate on that. So definitely, I will be very happy if you are making this interaction interactive. And let me tell you that faculty development programs are the only tool for the faculty to upgrade, to upscale, uplift their knowledge and skills. And the technology is changing everywhere, whether it is computer world or pharmacy world or everywhere. Likewise, in medicinal plant or pharmacognosy, everywhere the things are changing too fast. So if we are not updating, then our communication with the students lacks, because the students are becoming smarter these days. Everything is there on the Google. And if you are not updated, then means your interactions with them becomes less fruitful and all. So it is very necessary that we upgrade ourselves. Being a faculty, I try to attend as many as programs, seminar, conferences, listen to the stalwarts of medicinal plants, pharmacognosy, pharmacy, and other fields, education as a whole. So I have worked in AICT, I have worked in university from last 20 years. What I have felt, what I have observed, that only I am going to share with you. Okay. And I hope again, I will request that if you can switch on your cameras, interacting with me, that will be very nice. So again, I thank all the organizers for giving me the opportunity. Now I will share my screen. So please confirm that you are able to see, and then I can proceed.
Yes, sir. We are able to see the slides, and your voice is also clear.
Okay, fine.
Once again, on sir's behalf and as well as on behalf of Atal, it is mandatory, if it is requested, that you have to switch on the cameras.
Yeah, means it will be nice for the speaker also, yes, that your cameras are on, so I can see you in between. And shall I start?
Yes, sir, please.
Okay, so it is the theme only, translating pharmacognosy knowledge into the healthcare system. So the focus is how the pharmacognosy knowledge, the knowledge acquired by the pharmacognosy professionals, people, how we can translate, how we can transform into the healthcare system, and how we can contribute into the healthcare system in a better way. So I will start with the pharmacognosy introduction, and then we will go slowly to the subject. I'm not able to move my slides, Dr. Solapur. Are you able to see the second slide?
Sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
The term pharmacognosy was first introduced by Austrian physician Schmidt in the early 19th century, and then again in 1815 by Schittler in the work title Analytica Pharmacognostica. So if we see the definition of pharmacognosy, the American Society of Pharmacognosy says the study of physical, chemical, biochemical, biological properties of drug substances, or potential drugs or drug substances of natural origin, as well as the search for new drugs from different natural resources. I'm reading this definition because normally we correlate with the pharmacognosy with medicinal plants only. So apart from medicinal plants, we are also concerned with other natural resources like animals, like marine sources, like minerals, and microbial sources also. So because some of the fields are upcoming and they are picking up, so we are equally concerned with the other sources also. And the apart from medicinal plants, the marine pharmacognosy or marine sources are now picking up, and they are giving some interesting molecules for the new drug discovery. So in the beginning of the 21st century, the pharmacognosy teaching started in academic pharmacy institutions, not only in India, but the other parts of the world in USA, UK. The pharmacognosy is a subject in the pharmacy as a core subject in the pharmacy discipline. And they are studying their macroscopic, microscopic properties, their chemistry, origin, separations, purification, cultivation, isolation, active principles, activity-directed analysis, traditional medicines, herbal therapy, and drug development. So this is the things, means we have a wide range of doing the things about the natural products. So basically our aim is to develop the new drugs for the in the healthcare system, to give the new molecules. And we have some breakthroughs also in the past 100 years. If we can see, we have some interesting and very useful molecules which have been given by the pharmacognosy people, and which have been obtained from the natural sources. And the whole world is now looking that the new molecules will also come from the natural resources. So it is an interesting field. And pharmacognosy is used in the as an industry part in the pharmaceutical companies to screen, characterize, and produce new drugs from the natural origin for the treatment of the human diseases. So these are the few activities which are done in the pharmaceutical industry. So as we know that the pharmaceutical industry is booming, so there is a immense potential of pharmacognosy people, and the people who are true professionals having knowledge of the natural products, including medicinal plants, into the manufacturing side. But some consider pharmacognosy as an obsolete academic discipline. So I am sharing some facts with you. In India, that the reduced subjects in UG level prescribed by regulatory agencies, we have seen in last 4 or 5 years that at UG level, the subject of pharmacognosy have been reduced. And at PG level, if you can see, it is comparatively less preferred branch at PG level. Many places the PG is closed, and sometimes the seats are very less. But I can share with you all that in our department, we are running pharmacognosy from last 13 years. And every year we are taking 10 seats. And every year the seats are filled up, not only filled up, there is a competition to admit into the pharmacognosy course. And that to every nobody who has done PG from this university is unemployed. Means they are working well in industry, in teaching, in research and product development, regulatory, wherever, many places. Some of them have opened their own enterprises, and some of them in the pharmacovigilance they have gone abroad also. So comparatively less institutions are offering at this point of time. But in contrast, if we can see the fact that about 70% of the PG dissertation, PhD theses are based on the natural products, means we are seeing, we are witnessing that either we are making the formulation, picking up a natural product, or we are doing the pharmacological studies on a plant, or we are doing some other studies by other streams. They are picking up some natural molecules. So overall, the complementary and alternative medicine industry is booming. We know that all over India and world, we are seeing that there is a boom in the nutraceutical market. There is a boom in the herbal market, medicinal plant sector. And we have seen in the COVID-19 period also that we have tried and trusted so many herbal combination, and there's no products. And in the beginning, pharmacognosy was used to be known as the mother of pharmacy, because if we are taking the natural resources, then we used to go further for their chemical analysis by the chemistry people, and then pharmacological studies by the pharmacology people, and formulation development by the pharmaceutics people and regulatory agencies, most of the times, not always, most of the times. And it was known as the mother of the pharmacy. Then what happened? Where is the contradiction? So means the PG level, the seats are decreasing, the industry is booming, and the professionals are required. Then where is the problem? What are the gaps? So according to me, this is obsolete curriculum prescribed at UG PG level. Actually, we are not teaching, we are not studying the curriculum that is being framed. It is not as per the industrial need, and the level of training and skill set of the students is not at par with the need of the industry. And there is a lack of industrial connect also. We don't visit the herbal industries and other industries. What is happening there? What are their challenges? What are their needs? And how we can upgrade ourselves. Lesser initiatives for faculty development programs means the teachers who are teaching, some of them, most of them, they are upgrading themselves, and means not at par with the what is recent happening in the herbal industry. So the level of PG and PhD projects, this is my observation, because I attend so many PG and PhD dissertation theses and as examiner in many universities. So they are not at par at the level of PG and PhD dissertation thesis is not very good quality. And many a time we are preparing some nano formulations, and then, or we are doing the pharmacological study. That too, we are taking some very ambitious project like anti-diabetic study, anti-diabetic activity of falana plant. So means we are choosing the activity based on that a particular plant has been screened means for anti-diabetic activity by the 3-4 parts of the plant. If some part is not done, that has been picked up. So this is not a right criteria, means there should be some logic to pick up the project, and PG and PhD projects should be taken very, very seriously. So the level of PG and PhD research projects, that is, according to me, that is not up to the mark and up to the need of the industrial. So lack of the interdisciplinary approaches, we are only concerned with pharmacy. We are not talking with other disciplines like botany. We are not talking with Ayurveda people. We are not talking with biotechnology people. And most of the time we are the interdisciplinary approach is less. So these are my observations that the skill set, the overall training which we are giving to the students is not at par as the industry needs. So there is a big gap into that. So these are a few my recommendations that we have to rediscover the roots. Rediscover the roots, what I mean to say that in our whole pharmacy or pharmacognosy syllabus, you will not find any Ayurvedic principles. So if we are talking about medicinal plants and herbal plants, they are based on some Ayurvedic principles. So being a pharmacognosy, it is very necessary, according to me, that we should pick up the leaves from the Ayurvedic principles, because Ayurveda was a rich tradition since ages. We are using those medicine practices and their way of methods and their way of giving the medicines and all. So we have to start from there, and we have to take those principles, their method of preparation of their medicines, and then we can scientifically validate them. Okay, but somehow this is lacking, and I think that should be the base of pharmacognosy people, that we should start from the Ayurvedic principles if we want to connect ourselves with uh, herbal industry, medicinal plant sector, and Ayurveda. If we are, if we want to fit ourselves into this world, then we have to connect ourselves with Ayurveda, and then scientifically validating and converting into the herbal industry, means herbal drug technology. So we are in between. We are the technology persons who are taking the lead from the our traditional practices, and then only we can have the fruitful results. The research projects should be based on industrial needs. That is very, very needed, because in industry, the challenges are different. The challenges are raw material. The challenges are quality control, standardization. The challenges are regulatory aspect. The challenges are safety, stability. So it is not like that we are only concerned with efficacy of a particular plant, because other than efficacy, there are lot many other aspects like safety, regulations, on contraindications, indications, long-term, short-term, means, and their storage and their cost factors and their isolation methods. There are lot many other things, because efficacy is not going to work only. If a plant is effective in some inflammatory disease, and means its dose is too high, it is very rare plant, and the after isolation the cost is very high, then it is not financially viable for the industry. So what is needed by the industry, that we should we should pick up our projects in collaboration with the industry people and on realistic terms. We should have interdisciplinary approach. We should have collaborative project with Ayurvedic people, their principles and methods, and we should have collaborations with botany people, because they are the field people. There is a big problem. And we should talk to the biotechnology for recent advancements in the tissue culture and genetic advancement and all. So we should have interdisciplinary approaches while choosing or doing our projects, or doing our funding projects and all. So realistic and outcome-based project, in the 4 or 5 years, we have seen that all the funding agencies, whether it is AICT, UGC, ICMR, DST, CSIR, anything, they are now, the first question they will ask, that what is your outcome and how you are benefiting the society. So earlier we were not that much concerned with that, but now nowadays the questions will be asked, that what is your outcome, what is your expected outcome, and what is the social relevance. So the project should be based on that. The curriculum should be updated, and a regular interactive training session, that is very, very important, that we are now going on, and it is very necessary that we should have a lot of interactive session, not only on the theoretical part, but interactive in terms of practical and instrument handling and hands-on trainings and a lot of other trainings in the analyticals and other things. So we should share our views and we should listen to the other people, then only we can grow. And in the whole process, we should include the industry people, regulatory people, funding agency people, there's no intellectual property rights people, and pharmacovigilance people, clinical trial people. Every people should come on board to have the discussions to upgrade the this particular this area. So this was a few recommendations and my views about the pharmacognosy as a whole. And I think that pharmacognosy is a very important subject. In the future also, it will contribute. In the past, it has contributed, and in future also, it will be an integral part of the pharmacy profession. And as a pharmacy profession, we will be benefited a lot, because certain things, if we compare ourselves with the other people who are working in the field of medicinal plants, we are much having the better knowledge, technologically advanced in terms of chromatography, isolation, recent methods of extraction. So we understand the things in a better way. And what is lacking? That is lacking is the basic principle, traditional methods. And if we are collaborating the traditional knowledge into the technology, then the results will be very good. So these are my recommendations and views about the pharmacognosy. So now I'm coming to the industrial part of the pharmacognosy, or we can say herbal industry, because pharmacognosy is mainly known, if you're talking about natural resources, then directly in our mind it comes the medicinal plants or the herbal industry. Okay, so we will focus today on the herbal industry. What is happening in the herbal industry, and what is the quest for global acceptance, where are the lacunas, and what is the recent status, and what can be done by our herbal industry for global acceptance. So we are not discussing here the other aspects. So industrial point of view, the herbal technology involves the technologies in various products like herbal drugs and pharmaceuticals, nutraceuticals, and functional foods or health drinks. This is coming, this sector, nutraceutical and functional foods, is coming up after the COVID-19 period, during also, and it has a very good future. The cosmeceuticals, definitely it is coming up very well. We have seen the new billionaire in the past few days, Nykaa, and cosmetics have a very good future in the years to come. The biocontrol agents and biopesticides, these are a few products areas in which the medicinal plants are contributing. So if we see the herbal trend, the 60 to 70% of the population is using the herbal medicinal plants in South Asian countries, and the other developed and developing countries, like in developing Malaysia, the per capita consumption of traditional drugs more than double of the modern pharmaceuticals means. So in South Korea, per capita consumption of traditional drugs 36% more than the modern drugs. In African country, it is still more. 9 out of 10 patients will go to the herbal medicinal plants or traditional system of medicines first before going to the other system of medicines. So we see the developed countries. In USA, 42% use complementary and alternative medicines, spending upon over 29 billion US dollars every year. The UK, 28%, and Australia, 60%, Germany, Singapore, many of the developed countries, all of the developed countries, they go for the traditional system of medicines first before going to the other system of medicines. So there is a huge trend all over the world about the traditional system of medicines. So if we see the global herbal market, the international market is approximately this no a trillion 2020 with it is around 3 trillion with 6% annual growth estimated uh, to become 5 trillion by 2050. It is estimated. So right now it is around 3 trillion US dollars and expected to grow by 5 trillion. The annual turnover of Indian Ayurvedic industries is about 10 billion and it is growing by 15 to 20%. But as compared to the China, which is of 3 billion, and Indian exports are dismal around 100 million. So for herbal industry, there is a huge export opportunity. We know that there are opportunities and we need to tap that. But we are far way behind than the China because we Ayurvedic system of medicine, ASM and TCM, they were two who were these famous for their traditional system of medicine. And now if we compare with China, that China is far ahead. The reasons are many and I will discuss in the following slides. There are the major exporters of medicinal plants by value worldwide. If we see the values of exports, the China tops and the China, Hong Kong, USA, then India is here, that and other Singapore, Chile, France, and Germany. So China is like that, they are going. If we see the imports, then again China and USA. So in both ways, imports and imports, the China is leading. Why? Because they are importing the raw material, processing it, making it value-added products, and then they are exporting. So means they are the biggest exporter, they are the biggest importer also. So there is a value-wise analysis of exports in India. We are selling the senna pods, henna leaves, myrobalan, sandalwoods, gum, jojoba, pepperlong, and others, psyllium seed and all extracts. So basically, most of the time, what we have seen that most of the major chunk of the portion is from the export of the raw material, export of the unprocessed material, and lesser chunk is for the herbal extracts. And mean to say that we are doing less value additions and we are selling the raw materials. So means ultimately it is giving us the less returns as compared to the value added products. The value-wise analysis of imports in India, we are importing these drugs, Garcinia, licorice, pepperlong, gum arabic, all extracts, various things we are importing also. So there are many challenges. Quest means QUEST is the full challenges of meeting the global requirements like quality, efficacy, safety, and standardization. These are our biggest challenges. So we will discuss one by one briefly that quality is a major concern because adulteration with botanicals, toxic metals, microorganisms, microbial toxins. We have seen that industry is using the raw material from the wild sources, and there are not much regulations to regulate the raw material. And according to me, this is the biggest problem in the herbal industry, that there is no single point to purchase the raw materials, and there are no authentic raw material sellers. Might be very less, but they are not fulfilling the demand of the herbal industry. To mean to say that the herbal industry is dependent upon the wild sources, and when the wild sources are dependent, then lot of things like toxic metal, microorganisms, microbial toxins, and other things are incorporated into the during the processing, during the formulation. So during the whole process. So one study shows that 64% of the herbal medicinal plant samples collected in India contain significant amount of lead because we don't have any check. We don't have any labeling requirements, means. So 64% mercury, 41% arsenic, and a Harvard Medical School study reported that 40%, 20% of the 70 herbal medicinal plants contain heavy metals. So these are a few studies done by the various agencies in past, and they have discovered that there is a problem with the quality. And then a substantiation of the clinical efficacy. We have a lack of good clinical trials. Some of the important plants like Phyllanthus amaris, Picrorhiza, Tinospora, Omifora, Mucuna, Boswellia serrata have been tested in clinical trials. However, a recent review concluded that evidence-based studies on the efficacy and safety of traditional Indian medicines are limited. Means we have a number of plants which are trusted. We are using them since ages, but even then the clinical trials are not supporting them. And that is why we are somewhere lacking when we are claiming the the efficacy, and we are exporting them to the various other countries. So there is a need that we need good clinical trials. Of course, the herbal medicines are very, very effective. We know that. There is no doubt about that, but we have to scientifically validate those. There are a few other examples like 8-week treatment with Google lipid, 102 gram, means did not improve any serum cholesterol at all. Besides 6 participants taking Google lipid developed by hypersensitivity rash. Means to say that sometimes we are raising questions on the efficacy of a particular plant, but sometimes we do not know that what is the source from where it was collected, whether it is authentic or not, whether it is the same species, whether it was grown, cultivated in the particular conditions, it was stored in the particular conditions, it was processed in the recommended ways. So sometimes in hurriedly we are saying that the particular plant is not working. Means we need to look into the other aspects also. The safety issues, definitely there are, as earlier said, that not only with efficacy, we are equally concerned with the safety issues. What are their there's no adverse effects, contraindications with the food and the other drugs and the other medicines. We have to see that. And there is a biggest myth which we need to understand, that we are saying that herbals are always safe, and there is a common notion, and we are publishing into the papers, and we in the advertisements also. So nobody's checking them. We can see 2-3 advertisements right now. They are coming on the television, and they continuously saying that herbals hai isliye safe hai. So this should not be the tagline, and we need to see that herbals are also the contain the chemical compounds. They contain the chemicals, and if we are expecting some efficacy, some effect, then the side effects are also bound to come if we are not taking them in the proper way. So we need to understand, and we need to look into this aspect. So ephedra, marketed as dietary aid in USA, led to at least dozen deaths, and so many toxicity, adverse reactions, and other reactions were reported. And these reports are being made by the international media, international scientists, and they are some way saying that the herbals, medicinal plants, Indian medicinal plants, means they are not having the claimed efficacy, and they are having so many adverse reactions and interactions also. So this is our responsibility. If we wish that our products are acceptable, our products are accepted into the international market, we need to adopt the good practices right from the beginning, right from the cultivation, growing, then processing, then good manufacturing practices, good transport practices, and the other practices, so that their efficacy is intact, and we can claim and prove their efficacy and other things. So standardization is again a same issue, that we are not picking the raw material from the same source every time. And if some industry is preparing a batch in July, the raw material will have a different quality than the raw material which is obtained in December, because the climatic conditions are changed. So if the raw material is changed, then the whole efficacy and the overall activity efficacy is changed. So we need to standardize our preparations. So these are a few aspects, and these are a few examples given by. So China, as I have said, that this is a big competition. If we can see in China, they have made the traditional Chinese medicines as good as the mainstream system of medicines. Even they have a better reputation in the society in China, and they have done a lot of clinical trials. They have scientifically validating their things. They are publishing 3 times more than us, and they are on the ethical ways. Of course, they have some unethical ways also, but as compared to us, their products are more acceptable into the international market, as far as consistency of the quality is concerned, consistency of the and standardization of the products is concerned. So if we see the regulatory scenario, the global regulatory scenario is now changing, and the European Union traditional herbal medicinal product directive, food supplement directive, lot of other laws are coming. WHO is very keen to regulate the whole natural product market, and because they see a lot of potential into this field, and they urge to adopt the good practices as mentioned earlier. So, sorry. So the regulations all over the world, they are now coming up with the pharmacovigilance regulations, manufacturing regulations, and a lot of other regulations. They see that there is a lot of potential into the natural product market and nutraceutical market. If we see the Indian regulations, we have Drugs and Cosmetics Act that is been framed on the pharmaceutical product, that is, but it is also applicable to the herbal industry also. And then a few things are also being regulated by FSSAI, and then Bureau of Indian Standards, and the smaller Biodiversity Act, Wildlife Protection Act, and all these things. But we feel that still the regulations are insufficient. We need to come up with more teeth, and means they should be stringent regarding their labeling and regarding their claims. So we are claiming big, and we are advertising, and we are frequently in the society spreading that herbals are safe, very effective, and they are having the wonder results, like 10 din mein motapa, 10 din mein diabetes. So these things should be looked into it seriously by the regulatory agencies. The future of herbal products in India, there is a great future, because India is one of the 12 mega diversity centers. Now it has become 16 or 17 mega diversity center around the world. It has explored an unexplored flora with rich commercial potential. We have rich base of Ayurvedic practices that need to be understood, that Ayurvedic practices were very, very established one. We need to look those practices, and we need to then scientifically validate. The herbal medicine products have a wide acceptance and dependence. We are dependent on herbal medicinal plants most of the times. It is they are being used in households, and the enough competent manpower available for value addition initiatives. We are having pharmacognosist, we have botanist, we have biotechnologist, Ayurvedic, BAMS, means a lot of other persons who are training themselves, and trained uh, professionals are there who are studying about the medicinal plants. And then why don't we do the value addition rather than doing the selling the raw material? We should be into the value addition processes. So we are having the engineering branches. A lot of technology is there in our country, and a lot of manpower is there. We are having so many research institutions and this government initiatives. So we should look for value addition of the medicinal plants for greater values and revenues. The strategic location and supportive climatic conditions for cultivation programs, definitely we are having the best climatic conditions. We have summers, winters, and autumns and other types where we can grow a number of plants. And now a number of government initiatives are also coming up through various schemes. So as a whole, we can see that quality and standardization is a main concern. And if we look deeper, quality standardization, then raw material is the main concern, because starting material, if we are not picking up right, then the whole process is not quality controlled. So there is a need for producing and authenticating the starting material. And for that, we need to grow them, the medicinal plants, as cultivation initiatives. And one of the major initiatives has been taken by CDRI. I was fortunate to meet one of the senior scientists there in Lucknow. They were saying that they are now mapping the whole India according to their climatic conditions, and now they are in their finalization stages, that they will tell the society that what type of plant they can grow in this area. Means in Karnataka, there may be some other plants. In North India, in Haryana, there may be some different plants according to their climatic conditions. Maybe some different plants in Northeast, or down south, or in J&K. So we cannot grow every plant everywhere. So we need to see the nature of the plant, and then we need to see that where a particular plant can be grow better, which can give us the best phytochemicals with best quality. And then only those plants can be grown there, and more cultivation initiatives should be taken in future. So for the sustainable supply and for the quality raw material of the medicinal plants. And in research also, I would say that most of the time we are picking up our samples from randomly from here and there, and we should get our raw material from authentic sources. We should do proper their voucher specimen and all these things. Means then only we can say that this particular species is giving us the results, because the result changes drastically with the species wise and when the geographical conditions of the plant changes. So we need to understand this. If somebody is working in Withania somnifera here and Withania somnifera in Kerala, the results will be entirely different, because the starting material, the starting sample plant was taken from their native, and that will give altogether different results. That may give. So we cannot say that the plant is giving the particular efficacy or not giving. So before going into that, we need to see that what is the nature of the plant and from where we are collecting actually. So if we see uh, the whole scenario, that what should be our focus for the better performance of the medicinal plants, and how we can optimize and how we can upgrade ourselves, then number one, we need to development of species for cultivation in more areas. That is very, very necessary that we adopt the cultivation practices, and we have to develop the species. Improvement in cultivation practices to increase yield. Definitely, when we will go into the cultivation practices, then we will upgrade them for increasing in yield, quality, and so many other things. Then expansion of product applications, improvement in extraction and formulation procedures. Definitely, we have to do the value-added services. We need to adopt the recent extraction methods, and we should go into the standardized extracts and standardized formulations. Then testing and certification procedures and should be enhanced. Definitely, the testing facility should be increased. The export marketing need to be done. Project financing and incentive programs by the government agencies. Information and database management that has to be done because we need to collect the data. We have to correlate the data. We have to apply the artificial intelligence and other statistical softwares and then see what are the results. The e-agriculture herbal extension services to be expanded, creation of web portals to explain government programs. Most of the times we do not know what are the various programs initiated by the government. We need to expand those things. A few slides between the agri chain and overall cultivation aspects, and there is a gap between the few of them. We have met few innovative farmers during one of our project which we are running, which have been granted to us by UGC under STRIDE, and we are meeting with the farmers and seeing that what is a gap between the cultivator and the exporters, that like inputs, infrastructure, storage, transportation, technology, finance, quality assurance, training. So as a cultivator, they are unaware about many things, how to grow them, how to store them, how to transport them, and how to apply the technology, and how to sell them, like finances, and some training sessions when they will switch from the traditional crops to the medicinal plants. So there are some gaps. So there is the few slides are on the agri chain and cultivation aspect. I'm focusing on the cultivation mainly. And if you are seeing the production part, then there is a poor extension supply of inputs, the low productivity, outdated farming practices, because they do not know how to use the technology and what are the recent advancements in the pharmacy practices. After the crop, what is the gaps into the supply chain? There is a high wastage, lack of storage, poor transportation, many intermediates. So there is need to be upgraded the supply chain, whom to sell the product actually. And processing, no assured supply of inputs, lack of processing facility, technology. When we are talking about processing, then the person who is processing and putting a unit of processing, then he should know that what is the value in he will get in return, and what are the technologies which are involved, and some marketing tools, that poor infrastructure, lack of grading, no marketing linkages. So there are some broken chains into that, and that is why from the production to marketing to from cultivation to the processing to exporting there is a lack of understanding about the initiate who want to initiate, and there are some lack of trainings. And what to offer to improve the value chain, how we can improve this. We should initiate training to the farmers and the strengthening of extension services. There should be soil testing laboratories, supply of quality seed plant, that is very, very necessary. Setting up of pack houses with sorting, grading, greenhouses, pre-cooling units, cold storages, refrigerated vans, irradiated units, perishable cargo handling facilities. So if these facilities are there into the value chain, uh, these things are provided to the various cultivators, then the storage and manufacturers, then definitely they will uh, go into this. Then some other like waiver of electricity duties, transport subsidies, waiver of sale tax, international certifying agencies, encouraging private investments, and promote contractual farming. Definitely, these things to be picked up by the government agencies. These can be done by the PPP model also, and so that these things are encouraged. Means what should be the integrated finance through contract farming? If we are talking about the contract farming, then here is the finance, and means the finance part should be clear for the contract farming and farmers. Also, there should be buyback means initiatives. The farmer should know where to sell, and some agency should be there who are assuring that they will buy their products, because the farmers do not know where to sell ephedra, curcumin, and other medicinal products. Where is the market? What are the rates? What are how to maintain the quality? How to judge the quality? And so many things. So the finance, integrated finance should be assured by the government at different levels, like farmers, processors, export retailers, so that uh, the finance part is taken care in a better way. So advantages of integrated finance, I should skip this slide. So here are a few recommendations overall. The government should set up a tough regulatory mechanism and centralized testing facility to confirm products as per WHO norms, because now the WHO norms are in vogue, and we have to confirm their this regulations, and then only we will be able to export our products. And so we need to set up our regulatory mechanism according to that. And there should be some centralized testing agencies, facilitating agencies for that. And the second point is certified raw material should be available at specified centers adhering to the good practices. So this is very, very necessary. If we are putting some regulations for the herbal formulations, then we should have enough regulations for the raw material also. And the cultivators and who are growing, who are dealing with raw material, they should come up with the labelings and all, that this raw material is certified, it contains, and it doesn't contain this free from heavy metals, lead content, other contents. And if they are giving certified raw material to the manufacturers, definitely the whole process will be streamlined. Possibly a lot of things will be sorted out. The value-added product should be exported rather than raw material. Project report should be made available in this regard. Project report, in this sense, NMPB is having some project reports of the cultivation and value-added, that if a particular plant is processed, converted into the extract, standardized extract, then these are the cost factors and these are the possible outcomes. The whole project reports are available in their office also, on their website also. The Ministry of Ayush is also coming up with this type of, so that the person who want to initiate should have some idea that what will be the finance factor means. And scientific cultivation and contractual farming to be promoted, and accessibility to the farmers and interested person be increased. This has been discussed, and I have told that this type of initiative should be taken immediately. buyback policy and government subsidies to be increased. At the beginning, we need buyback policies and some sort of subsidies. Some subsidies are given at the cultivation of medicinal plant. NMPB has taken the initiative. On some crops, they have subsidies, but people do not know. What we have interacted with the farmers and other people, they do not know what are the policies. So we need the awareness programs that so that the common person should know that what are the subsidies, how to take benefit of that. The future belongs to an herbal company or industry that is research focused, quality driven, regulatory compliant, consumer friendly, and market savvy. So these are the crux points that a herbal industry need to be upgraded in this way. Again, pharmacognosy in the healthcare, we are coming to an end of the presentation, and we want to say that India is a gifted country of acharyas, Veds, Munis, who have inherited us with rich treasure of Ayurveda and Ayurvedic practices. And globally, if we see the high demand of the use for herbal medicines for the treatment of various diseases is undisputable, and their efficacy is also undisputable. And one wants to know whether these products are actually good quality, safe, and effective. If we see the global perspective, they are concerned with quality, safety, efficacy altogether. Not only with efficacy, but quality and safety also. So we need to upgrade our products in that way. And in this whole scenario, the pharmacognosy and the pharmacognosy field, pharmacy as a whole, pharmacognosy in particular, the pharmacognosy people, professional can play a very big role if, but provided they are upgraded, their skill set is as per the industry. So with continued and collaborative efforts in academia, research as per the need of the industry and current trends, it is envisaged that pharmacognosy would play a significant role in the global healthcare system. So this is what about me, and I have tried to brief about the pharmacognosy and the herbal industry and the challenges and the various recommendations. So I will be happy if you have any questions regarding that.
Delegates.
Dr. Solapur?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir, I'm here.
please.
If you have any question, maybe you can just type into the chat box. We'll wait for the question, sir. I have a question
Yeah.
regarding the regulatory aspects of herbal.
Mhm.
We have found, I have seen that many of the drugs which are formulated, if it is written as a drug, then it falls under the category of Schedule Y, and
Yeah.
it has to be strictly monitored. And
Mhm.
if you mention it as a nutraceutical, it escapes from those all regulatory aspects.
Yeah.
So this seems to be a very critical.
This seems to be a very critical, and you are absolutely right, Dr. Saab. And the most of the time, the industries and the manufacturers are taking this door to escape, actually. And the most of the time of their products, they will not claim that on label, they will not claim that this is effective against this disease. And they will fall their product into the nutraceutical category, and then in the advertisements or through other means, they will smartly, they will say that it will heal these type of diseases and all. So you are definitely right, and we need to look into it seriously, that what type of things can be kept into the nutraceutical means category. And if we are putting the products into the nutraceutical category, then we should not claim for any this therapeutic effect means. So that is very, very necessary. Even you can see that some type of Tela, some this popular brands, they are advertising that it will cure the even they are claiming that you need not to go for a knee transplant and all these things. If we are applying this type of oils and medicine, so it will be cured. So we should see that where these type of claims and advertisement should be regulated strictly. Yeah.
Regarding taking up herbal drugs as a major business or taking up, I mean, herbal as a major challenge. What I've seen is many industries which has come up in the recent past. They have switched on from herbal to FMCG. The reason what was quoted was lack of the availability of pure drugs. I mean, pure drugs are now being substituted, and that is the reason why they have started. I mean, they have stopped manufacturing and getting into expanding their market, and they have switched on from herbal drugs to FMCG. Is it true? What's your point of view on this?
See, actually, again, I will say that when we are into the herbal drug development, and we say that we are claiming for any disease cure, that it is a costly affair, because if we are isolating and proving that for a particular disease, it needs a lot of investments. And we have seen in the recent past, in the past decade, many big houses, they started their herbal units, their research centers, and then they shifted to the FMCG and other sectors, because the research in herbals is a costly affair. But I would say that that is true on this to some extent. But many herbal units like Himalaya and some other units, they are continuously improving themselves, and they are coming up with some interesting products, standardized products. And again, I would say that getting a good quality raw material is a major challenge in India, because sustainable supply and good and continuous supply with good quality is a major in India. And most of the companies were facing this challenge, because if their products started to run, then they need the raw material. And if the raw material is not supplied continuously, then they are in trouble. So definitely we have to start from the creating the standardized raw material, and cultivation of medicinal plant is the only way that we should begin our most of the initiatives. That first of all, we should ensure that we have enough quality raw material. Then only we can think of their processing, and then formulation development, then exporting and all.
One more question is, sir, in your slides, you mentioned that TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, they have been very well accepted in China and is on par with the synthetic drugs. What makes them to be on par with the synthetic drugs, which can be adapted in Indian system?
See, they have taken a lot of initiatives into the scientific validation of their TCMs. They have made several in thousands of clinical trials. They have isolation units, and they have standardized their preparations in that way, and they are claiming on their labels that this formulation contains this much of ethanolide, this much of this thing. And that is why their products are acceptable in a better way into the international market first. And secondly, in their own country, they are considered at par, because they have proven their efficacy, because the practitioners are well trained, and their training is very stringent in this TCM area. And they are well versed that only the efficacy will be claimed by a trained professional. As compared to the India, means every third person will say that you take this drug and it will be good for you. and means the herbal products are sold sometimes in India onto the kirana shops also. So we need to look into it. We have to look the herbal products as medicines, and they should be kept, sold, manufactured, processed in a scientific way. Then only the whole scenario will change. Secondly, the training part of the professionals, whether they are Ayurvedic practitioners and all, they should be trained in a better way so that they are in a position to prescribe the herbal medicines with confidence, with proven results. So the things will change in that way.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So there's a question that are there some agencies who give financial aid to farmers for cultivation of medicinal plants?
The as far as government initiatives are concerned, some agencies are giving the subsidies. I have mentioned the National Medicinal Plant Board, and they have subsidies on the cultivation of medicinal plants. Number one, so they can be contacted that for cultivation of medicinal plant first. Secondly, some private companies in the PPP model, public-private model, partnership model, they are coming up and they are making this contracts with the farmers for the cultivation of medicinal plants. And you can see that a lot of it means if we can take the example of Dabur, they have set up various units in NCR, in Saibabad and all. They have contracted various farmers in the NCR region. And the Himalaya has made a contract with the surrounding of Dehradun and the other parts where their units are. So they have made a contract. They have this buyback policies, and they are training their farmers how to grow the particular plant, and the farmers are benefited. So there are a lot of private and public agencies who are now there into the market, who are helping into the cultivation of medicinal plants.
Any other question, delegates? You can unmute yourself and ask a question. Gavira sir, do you want to ask a question?
Sir, good afternoon. It was a nice talk, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Aviraj.
Sir, my question, hydroponic system, it is coming in a big way.
Yeah.
Any herbal industries, they're procuring from such cultivated plants? Any idea?
So as far as I know, hydroponics is very, very successful in the leafy plants. And means if we see, and some other parts also, if we see the crop of tomatoes okay. Means we can keep it into the vegetable section and all. All the tomatoes which have been taken by the sausage industry, Kisan, Maggie and all, they are cultivated through hydroponics only, because means the crop is similar, the sweetness is similar, and the size of the tomato is similar, and the quality is similar. So the whole sauce industry is dependent on the hydroponic system regarding the supply of the tomatoes. And likewise, the many interesting herbal plants are also being tried by the hydroponic system. In Himachal, they have tried to cultivate hing, asafoetida, which is there, which is a crop of Afghanistan, and they have successfully grown by the hydroponic system. So many leafy vegetables, if we are taking about taking the example of leafy, a lot of leafy vegetables are now grown by the hydroponic system, and this system is very, very interesting. And in the years to come, the this is going to come in a big way, means. So because in a small place, we can set up the unit, and the quality of the crop is very good. So that is free from, mostly free from other problems like the quality and safety. So rightly said, this hydroponics is can be quite beneficial in the future for the growth of medicinal plants.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your answer. Any other question anyone else would like to ask? If no questions are there, I would like to wrap up. It was the most pragmatic presentation right from the beginning of the talk. Sir started with the education system, what we are facing now. Many of us would not like to discuss about it at the platform at the national level, where sir has taken up that topic of admission, a lack of admission, and yeah, it is a practical problem what many of the institutions are facing regarding the admission of PG courses in pharmacognosy. I think that should be taken as a challenge, and more talk should be done on the aspect of pharmacognosy, so that awareness is grown into larger extent, and more students take up interest and venture into the field of pharmacognosy. And later on, sir shifted its focus from the education aspect to the industry, where most of the farmers are facing difficulty in terms of selling their crops. Maybe it is crude drug, or maybe it is volatile oils, flours, and many of the very costly products which they are growing in their fields. They don't get the market for that. So that is why they lose interest in herbal drugs, and that is the reason why it is losing grounds. So thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for such a pragmatic presentation, and I hope all the delegates have taken up a very good message about the herbal drug industry and pharmacognosy at large. So with this, we come to an end. On behalf of Kaili College of Pharmacy, Hubli, and on behalf of ATAL, I thank Professor Dr. Munish Garg, sir, for sharing his valuable knowledge with all of us. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye, sir. Dear delegates, with this, we come to an end of the first day of 3 sessions. Tomorrow's session, we shall begin at 9:30 a.m. With the first speaker, Dr. Mirza R. Beg, Professor, Department of Clinical Pharmacy and Pharmacotherapeutics, Dubai Pharmacy College, Dubai. So the topic of his presentation is risk and benefit assessment of herbal products in patient care. So I have already shared links of the morning 2 sessions, and I am still yet to get feedback from few of the delegates. I'll be sharing the link for this 3rd session also.